Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Erik Johansson, a teacher with LSAT Demon. With me is Nathan Fox, founder of LSATdemon.com and the weekly podcast Thinking LSAT. Today, an email from John.
John says, hello, gents. I've been plateauing recently in my timed sections, scoring anywhere from -3 to -0. Just when I think I'm improving, I find myself in RC time trouble or make dumb misreads and wind up back at -3. Any tips on how to get more consistent on these and start improving at this level specifically? Thanks for all you do. Best, John. I mean, good problem to have, right, Erik?
Yeah, I was going to say, you're plateauing at the plateau, right?
Hardly anybody gets better than -0.
No.
It's really rare. Exceedingly rare.
Yeah, when I took the test, my practice test range was 167 to 180. So, and that, 167 on a bad day, 180 on a lucky day. So there's going to be a range, -3 to -0. Hard to get better than that. So don't beat yourself up over that too much, John.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, you don't want to miss the very few questions that you are currently missing. I think, John, one thing you said indicates a little misunderstanding.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, Nathan, what causes RC time trouble?
Not reading the passage well enough in the first place. Well, what I was going to say, I'm always reminded of Carl, who is at Yale now, or maybe he's about to graduate from Yale. Mm-hmm. But Carl scored 179 or something like that on his official LSAT and didn't finish his reading comp. You just don't need to finish your reading comp. That's what I really wanted to say to John is like, dude, who cares? You sometimes score -0. That's great. Every once in a while, it takes you a little bit longer. You run out of time. You have to guess on a couple at the end. That's not the end of the world. So don't let this pursuit of perfection cloud your understanding of how well you're actually doing. You do sometimes ace it. That's awesome. If you ever miss questions, you should be thoroughly investigating those mistakes. The way that we improve on the LSAT generally is we review thoroughly our mistakes, because each mistake or each missed question is 2 mistakes, right? John, you've picked a wrong answer. That's a mistake. You've also failed to pick the right answer, which is right there on the page. That's another mistake. So as you review the missed questions, you need to be investigating. Okay, well, wait, what's going on here? How is it that I'm not only picking a wrong answer, but also failing to pick the right answer right there on the page in front of me? And the secret to reading comp is that there basically is no secret. They're all just a bunch of must-be truths. They'll throw in one strengthen or weaken question from time to time, but the vast majority, like 95+% of reading comprehension questions are just asking you whether you comprehended what you read. So when you're missing a question, it's because you didn't comprehend something. And striving for speed is not the answer. The answer, what you really need to be striving for is just, okay, I'm never going to miss any of the questions that I attempt. But if you leave 1 or 2 unanswered once in a while at the end of the section, I don't really care, because you can score in the high 170s doing that.
Anything else you can think of that is like the real top level lessons that high scorers have to learn to get to the top?
Frequently, people at John's level will miss a question that sounds like it can be inferred from the passage that the author would be most likely to agree with which one of the following. Because John's smart. John knows he's smart. John goes, oh, you want me to infer from the passage? You want me to think about what the author would be most likely to agree with? Mm-hmm. And they'll actually shy away from answers that were clearly stated in the passage because they think that they're supposed to be reading between the lines.
Yeah.
And instead, John, you need to be reading the lines themselves. So it's ironic, but sometimes our top performers miss those questions more often than a lower level student. A lower level student is like, well, I mean, I picked that answer because that's what it said in the passage. And I'm like, yeah, that's why it's the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
And John's like, no, they said I wanted to infer something that the author would agree with. And, the response to that is...
They're doing more work than they have to.
Yeah, I can infer from the part where it said that. Because it said that, I can infer that the author probably agrees with that because that's what the author said. So it's just, it goes back to our fundamental, like our core philosophy of reading comp is that they're all just a bunch of must be trues. What else do you have to offer, John?
The one thing that I was trying to reflect on what got me to my peak at reading comprehension. And the thing that comes to mind was just embracing the power of predicting, which, John, you're not scoring -0 to -3 on RC unless you're pretty good at reading. And you were probably, I guess I don't know how much work you've done. I'm going to guess you were pretty good reader when you started this test. I got to a level of pretty high competence on reading comprehension just from a lifetime of reading and being, paying attention to what I was reading.
Yeah, same.
But when you're operating at the really highest level of performance on LSAT reading comprehension, I think that comes with needing to predict the answer more and recognizing that these answers are often very predictable.
Yeah.
And I probably, even if I was reading really well, and even if I could read a question and RC and go into the answer choices and puzzle out, okay, yep, I do remember now, this was the thing that I read. I could do all that and get it right, but achieving the next level was not going into the answer choices passively, but by stopping after reading the question and accepting that, like, even if it felt like some broad, open-ended question, like, we can infer that the author would believe what about the critic's claims, it's not broad and open-ended. You can reflect, you can take an extra moment to think about it and say, wait, there's only 2 sentences in the whole passage that talk about these critics. So the answer can only be one of those 2 sentences, or maybe both of them.
Totally.
So that's what I would say is you're already doing really well just based on the fact that you're reading really well.
Yeah.
But can you up your prediction? Can you accept that, wait a minute, if I just think a little bit extra after these questions, I can predict the answer?
Yeah, John might be, he's worried that he occasionally runs out of time. So then he might be thinking, oh, well, I don't have time to take that moment to try to predict. I'm just going to get into the answer choices. And then the answer choices start to like interfere with your actual understanding of the passage, right? The wrong answer choices are just garbage. And that garbage can cloud up your thinking. So when they say it can be inferred from the passage that the author would most likely agree with which one of the following about XYZ, cover up the answer choices and go, well, what did they say about XYZ? If you don't quite remember, reading A and B and C's, that's not where you want to go. Where you want to go is back to the passage. Well, wait, what did they say about this one little detail? Because the most important part of the question, again, the question is, it can be inferred from the passage that the author would be most likely to agree with which one of the following. The most important part is from the passage. There has to be evidence in the passage to support whatever you're picking. So if they only said one thing about XYZ, go back and refresh your memory. Well, what did they say about XYZ? The only thing they said about XYZ was this. I didn't really understand at the time how that was related to the main point that they were making. Yeah, okay, but that's what they said about XYZ. And this question is asking you, what did they say about XYZ? That's probably the answer. And that's where, to get back to your prediction point, that's where it's like, well, if they only said 1 or 2 things about that topic, that's probably the answer to that question.
Yeah. It sounds so obvious to just say it in this conversation, but I distinctly remember having to learn this lesson myself when I was already scoring in the 170s. And having to learn this lesson. Oh, if I just take a little bit of extra time to remember what I know about this question, that helps.
Yeah, lots of times students think that the reading comp is asking you different questions, but they're not really asking you different questions. They're asking you the same question about different parts of the passage.
Yeah.
But they're not really asking you different types of questions. They're just asking you, did you comprehend what you read?
Yeah,
so
what did you just
comprehend?
Read?
Yeah, did you comprehend what you read about this? Did you comprehend what you read about that? And so, yeah, sometimes rather than just blundering into the answer choices, and this is advice, by the way, for -3s and -13s. Like, you don't have to be at John's level to take this advice to heart. Is that they're basically just asking you whether you comprehended, what did they say about this part of that passage?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer choices are not your friend.
Yeah. Okay. But Nathan,
yes.
Sometimes the questions don't reference a particular part. They don't say we can infer from the passage that the author would believe this about XYZ. They just say we can infer that the author would believe what.
Yeah. But it still says from the passage, right? So then, I can't make a specific prediction, but I could remind myself what the main point of the passage was. And then I could keep my standards really high. When I start reading A, I expect it to be wrong unless I can't find a reason why it's wrong, in which case it's probably the right answer. So did they say this in the passage or not? They could have used different words, right? Synonyms are a thing. A lot of different ways to say the same thing. That's what lawyers do a lot. So is there evidence in the passage to support this answer that I'm about to pick? And on 4 of them, you should be able to eliminate them as unsupported by the passage. There's one answer where you're going to go, well, I didn't really like any of these 5, but this answer right here, there's this part of the passage that seems to say basically this. Yeah, okay. I guess that's got to be the answer.
I can't really get rid of it conclusively like I can the other 4.
Then it's probably correct.
Yeah. But I'll repeat what you said. I'll repeat what you said. Remember the main point. It's shocking how often these are just main point questions in disguise. Yeah.
Yeah. So 95% of the questions are just must be trues. But like half of the questions are basically just asking you did you get it? Did you get what they were trying to say here? Did you get the main point of the passage? They ask you main point. They ask you the primary purpose. They ask you for the author's attitude or they're basically, what was the point? What are they trying to prove here?
Yeah.
Hope that's helpful, John. Write us back and let us know.
Email daily@lsatdemon.com if you'd like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thanks for listening.